All right, everyone, we're going to get started. I am going to share our first screen. Thank you for waiting here. My name is Amy Marcella, and I am moving things around here. My name is Mrs. Amy Marcella. I am the Director of Advancement at St. Joe's. And tonight we are kicking off our webinar series, the future series that is normally our internship program. And now we're opening it up to freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors to enjoy a program every week where we're going to feature either an alumni parent, an alum, or one of our community partners who host our internship sites. And they're going to share their career journey and some great advice and some stories about how you get things started and really some good stuff. Even freshmen and sophomores, this is a great start for you to start thinking about what you want to do your internship for your senior year. And that said, I want to introduce our featured speaker tonight, and that would be Mrs. Donna Prutting. And Mrs. Prutting, I'm going to read your bio if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
Yep. And so Mrs. Prutting is a senior career management consultant with Right Management, and she serves clients and candidates from Fortune 500 companies in the Northeastern market. She and her husband, Mike, are the proud parents of 5 St. Joseph alumni. We have Matt from class of 2008, Nick from 2010, John from 2013, Joe from 2014, and Chris from 2016. And she has a quilt that I don't know if I can see it in the frame, but from all their t-shirts from all the years, it's awesome. Maybe we'll see it later. And so she's got the cadet spirit. And a little bit more about you, Mrs. Prutting. You coach all levels of job seekers from early career to C-suite executives. Market research, personal branding, and meaningful social media presence are key parts of strategy and career exploration and your coaching. Prior to joining Right Management, she's held multiple leadership roles in her community for nonprofits as well. And she's utilized her workshop development and facilitation skills to train speakers to organize, write, and present information in engaging an audience. Those are not easy things to do, Mrs. Prutting. So without further ado, I'm going to be her slide presenter, and I'm going to turn over the mic to Mrs. Prutting, who is going to tell you how to present yourself in the evolving workplace.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm glad that you could join us tonight. And it is a very strange and evolving marketplace right now with dealing with a global pandemic, and the things that are going on today we already see are making great changes in the marketplace for the future. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But let me start with my career journey. And usually when I coach job seekers, I tell them, look, you don't need to start at the beginning and tell everybody everything that you've ever done. But for your purposes, I think it could be helpful to you to know kind of where I started and how my career evolved, because it really has changed over the years. Very early on, I mean, when I was, a young kid, I had a great interest in sewing. My grandmother was a seamstress. I learned to sew at a very early age. I think I was 5 when I had I made my first, handkerchief. And, I really developed an interest in that. And it was something that I very seriously pursued. I mean, I made all my own clothes from 5th grade on. When I was in high school, I made all my own clothes. And I thought, okay, this is what I want to pursue. I wanted to be in fashion design. And I applied to the Fashion Institute of Technology with a portfolio. I was accepted there. I loved it. I was in New York City, and this is everything that I ever wanted to do. My dream was to be a costume designer, design costumes for Broadway, because I was in New York, and that's where I wanted to be. And after about I guess it was 3 semesters, although I loved the work and I loved the industry, I figured out that I didn't fit in. And no one had ever mentioned to me that that could possibly be a problem. It's a very, interesting industry, high drama, a lot of very eccentric people, and I just plain little old me did not fit in there. And so I, went to the career services and said, oh, okay, I have a bit of a problem here. Although my interests and my skills may lead me in this direction, this is not something I feel like I could be successful at or be happy. And so I decided to pursue the business end of the fashion industry, and changed majors, and then went to business school, got a marketing degree, and had a little bit of a pivot very early on. And I was lucky to have a professor that was a great mentor. She had been in retail and encouraged me to pursue a buying and merchandising career, which I did early on, and I loved that. I got into a management training program, and I loved doing that until I got tired. Because retail is a very demanding, crazy hours. It's very demanding work. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And then another great mentor stepped in and said, look, you love this business, you know this business. What about doing training and development, something I had never even considered? So someone else saw a skill, or in me, and encouraged me to pursue that, which I did. And I did that for a number of years, and that's where I got the foundation for this career that I have now. I didn't know that I could write workshops, and that I could, put together presentations where other people could learn stuff. I enjoyed that very much. And then I had another career pivot where I had 5 kids, and I really didn't want to work outside the home during that time. So the whole 90s, when I was, having kids, I did volunteer work, and I used those skills in different ways in the community. And I didn't even realize most of the time that that was going to have a payoff. It was just something that I enjoyed doing. And then one day, my husband came home from work, 2008, the market crashed, and he said, I have a friend who's looking for someone who could help facilitate workshops and help people with resumes and, interviewing skills. You'd be great at that. And I thought, well, I already have a job. I have these 5 kids. And he says, oh, it's per diem. You can do it. And that's how I started with Right Management. I started doing that per diem. And again, another great mentor stepped into my life and taught me this business. And I have been doing that, ever since. So, along the way, I had changes in my education. I got some certifications along the way to, help me as I had my little career pivots. I had great mentors, and at the end of this, I will share a little bit about what I wish I knew much earlier on.
All right.
So what do I do as a career coach? It's interesting working with people from Fortune 500 companies, because I learn as much from them as they do from me. That's my research into the marketplace and what's happening there. When they come to me, so often they haven't written a resume in years and really don't know what that is, and they're really not sure who they are, or what their value is in the marketplace. So I teach people how to build a bridge between what their career goals are and what the marketplace needs are. And so often people are only looking at one side of that equation. So it's important to learn how to research the marketplace, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I mean about that and what you could be doing now. And I teach people how to create a personal brand that creates business, that communicates business value. Because that's what people want to hear when you go into an interview. What are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for my business? So I teach people how to communicate that, not only in words, but through collaterals like resume and social media, having an online presence, and networking, which is really a big part of this whole career business, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through and how that applies to you. Because what I'm doing with my professional clients is really not that different than what I would say to you guys. But you have the benefit of learning from what other people wish they had done early on and may have missed out on. All right, so next slide, let's talk about what you need to prepare for a professional presentation as a student. There's two sides to this. So the one side is the you. This is sort of, if we had a Venn diagram, you'd be the first circle. And what is it about you that you need to learn about yourself? You all have skills and talents and interests that you're thinking about. You know that there are things that you are good at that maybe someone would never pay you for. And you know that there are things that you're good at that you wish people would pay you for. There are things that you're interested in, but maybe have been reluctant to try or haven't had the opportunity to try. What motivates you is something that you need to be thinking about. What would you be happy getting up and doing every day of your life that someone would be willing to pay you for? And motivation is something that people often don't think about early on, or even throughout their career. They just kind of get up and go through the motions. What kinds of environments you feel you might be successful in? It's another thing that people don't think about. Am I better in a bigger company or a smaller company? Do I like to work by myself or with a team? What are the kinds of things that are going to make me happy in my work? And then the other side of that Venn diagram, and if we put it together, how they overlap, is, what about the marketplace? Do you just think about jobs, or do you think about industries? What industries might interest me, might bring success for me? And what are the different types of roles? At this point, in your knowledge base, there are a lot of roles out there that you may have never heard of. There are roles that have not yet come to be. As I mentioned before, the marketplace is changing dramatically. And right now, for those of you who are freshmen, sophomores, even juniors and seniors, there are roles that don't currently exist that will exist once you graduate from college. We don't even know what those are because they are developing right now. So, doing some research and figuring out what those things are and what are the evolving needs, especially in a post-pandemic marketplace. And what about companies? Companies that you might be interested in. And we'll talk a little bit more about those things on the next slide. But that exploration and research is so key, and something that you could be doing now by just thinking and asking questions.
I have a question for you, Mrs. Prutting. I have a quick question. I was
Sure.
just thinking, one of the things you just mentioned was, interest, motivation, what environment. What if a student has a bunch of different interests? I think about my sister-in-law who plays piano. She loves art, but she's a physician's assistant. She's pursued medicine. So is it, again, these are kids, it's students that are all, looking at different interests, and they might have a ton of interests, or they might just be like, where should I start?
I think you should start with asking questions and getting experiences, because that's really, you don't know what you don't know. One of my colleagues loves to say that. And so not being afraid to ask questions, and that's something that I encourage all along the way. Don't be afraid to say you don't know, or you're curious about something. We all have things that we like to do, and hobbies, and one of the things that happened for me, and you can see, behind me, my interest in design became not a primary in my career, but a secondary. And it's interesting to think about multiple revenue streams, which is, at this point in your career, when you're in your life, when you're just trying to think about one thing, you're certainly not thinking about multiple things. But you know, that is a very real strategy for careers, having multiple revenue streams, especially today where people don't stay in the same job for, you know, 30, 40 years. They don't retire in the job that they started in. So, you know, exploring and figuring out, well, where is that role where somebody would pay me to do that thing? And recognizing that, look, some things are talents that are for fun, that would be very difficult to pursue to get somebody to pay me for, and other talents, you know, have a value in the business world. And so how do you find that out? You test, you ask, and I have a little bit more about that on another slide. We'll talk about how to figure more of that out. Developing a meaningful online presence is really important, because you're already developing an online presence. You already have that. And, you know, I'll get a little deeper into that in a minute or two. Developing, you know, I encourage people to start a Word document, you know, whether you're a freshman or you've worked for 20 or 30 years, open up a Word document to list skills and accomplishments without thinking about where does this go on my resume and how do I say it in an interview. Just say, what are my skills and what are the things that I have done that I will be able to use later in you know, in a resume and in an interview. And I'm going to break that down for you. You know, it's really important to learn professional communication skills. You know, I see a lot of bad habits. I am shocked at the writing of some people that, you know, are, you know, not just coming out of college, but, you know, have been in the workforce for a long time. Thank God you guys are at St. Joe's, because my kids don't have those problems. You know, they have really strong writing and communication skills, and they learn them right there. So that's not something that I really worry about with you guys. Building a network is something that you want to start doing now, and I'm going to break that down for you too. But Amy, you know, being open to new ideas, it kind of goes in with what you were saying. You know,
Yeah.
how do I know what to pursue? And along with that is seeking out mentors. You know, people, you know, I was lucky. I kind of tripped over them in my life. I didn't have to seek them out. But as I got further in my career journey, I recognized who would be a good mentor for me, and then, you know, pursued time with that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too. You know, the mentor thing, it may be kind of a new idea. So, you know what, I'll come back to that. I will come back to that. Let's talk about exploration. All right, so how do you learn about you? There are personality assessments that are very popular, have been popular forever. Myers-Briggs and Berkman are two that I put on the slide, but there are many, many more. I put those on because you can take free Myers-Briggs and Berkman assessments online. You just type in free Myers-Briggs, and it'll give you an assessment. And they talk about personality types. And it's not trying to pigeonhole you into, you know, one thing or another, but what it's helpful in kind of having you look in the mirror and say, yeah, you know, this is how I react to certain people. This is how I react in certain situations. And so therefore, these are the situations where I might be most successful in my career, because they are conducive to those reactions. And then the same thing with Berkman only environments. You know, would I be better where in an environment where I interact with a lot of people, or by myself, or in a creative environment versus a more operational environment? So they're really good. Those are really good assessments to kind of get an early read on predicting where you might be most happy in your career.
And then just a little plug for
you know, two books that I love.
just want to do a little plug for Mrs. Clark and the College Counseling
Oh,
Office
sure.
for sophomores. I think next month you will have an opportunity to do one of these personality assessments. So stay tuned for the sophomore class. And certainly, I know that there's lots of other options you could do if you're not a sophomore.
Okay, two books that I put there on the screen. One is Do What You Are. That is my favorite. I had, I think 4 of my 5 kids went through that Do What You Are book. And, it really helps you assess the things that that interest you and that and it matches them up to careers. So I really encourage that book. And What Color Is Your Parachute's been around for forever. It was written in the 70s and has been reprinted, hundreds of times. But another good way to explore. And the good thing about what color is your parachute is it connects it to the whole idea of networking. They really explain that and break it down, which is really key in careers. Exploring career options. The first on that list, it's onetonline.org. It looks kind of weird when you read it that way. It looks like, I don't know, one net online, but it's a great website. It's hosted by the Department of Labor, and what I love about it is it gives you several ways to explore careers. You could say, hey, I don't know what I want to be, and just explore. You could say, I have these particular skills and interests, so what careers would that match me up with? Or you could look up a particular career and see if it is something that is on the upscale or down. Does it have a bright future, or is it something that is downtrending? Which is really, it's important to know those things, before getting involved with something that may not be around, or maybe changing dramatically in terms of the world of work. Volunteering, internships, shadow days, and one that I didn't put on there is, asking for tours are great ways to look at career options, because what you think a job is not necessarily what that job is. 2 examples that I have. One is young person that decided they wanted to be a surgical technician. That's great. Want to see if, I may want to go to nursing school, but I don't know. Let me try this out. Only not understanding that it's absolutely freezing in operating rooms, and not having that knowledge and embarking on that is a waste of time, because if you can't exist in that environment, it's very difficult. So having that experience, knowing what it's like in the day-to-day is really important. Another one that I see frequently is people will graduate with a degree. The most recent one was, accounting. So spending all this time, and then after a year saying, I hate this work. So knowing what the work is and what the day-to-day is really important. So even if right now you can't get an internship or a shadow day, that's not going to be forever. That's temporary. But, even something as simple as asking for a tour. Might I be able to come in and, see what it's like in that work environment? So that's it about exploration. Let's get a little deeper into online presence. Currently evaluating, what is your online presence? What have you got out there? Is it something that you may regret later? You don't want to have anything that you're going to regret. You want to be thoughtful about your online presence and what you put out there. And if you're thinking, well, hey, you know what? I don't have anything out there. That's not good either. It's something that you want to build. You want to be building a professional brand. You know, one of the things that I like to talk about early on is creating a LinkedIn profile. You know, that is the professional social media platform. And if you build a brand on LinkedIn now, when you're in high school, then when you're older, and you're ready for that first job, your search engine optimization will be much better than someone who's just starting out, because that stuff, time matters. And so the earlier that you do that, the more it will benefit you when you are looking for work, or someone is searching for, you know, an accountant from a certain school. You're going to come up high in that search. So you want to be doing those things now.
And
Preparing
Mrs.
for
Prutting,
things like,
just a
you know,
quick,
virtual
quick note.
interviews.
Just a
Yes.
quick note about LinkedIn. I think it's really great if all the students listening tonight can create that first profile on LinkedIn, and certainly there's lots of folks here at St. Joe's that can help you if you have questions, because you can really connect with other alumni that work in all different fields, and there's quite a few of us on that page, and it's a really, really great way to just dip your toe a little bit into the networking piece, because right now we're all online anyway. So why not start off with LinkedIn? I think it's a great time to do that and build that profile. And certainly, like I said, there's a lot of folks at St. Joe's that would help you as a student kind of get through that. So just wanted to put that plug in there.
Agreed. And, you know, anyone is welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to, you know, help with that, with those profiles as well. That's one of the things that I do for Right Management. I'm a subject matter expert on LinkedIn, so I'm always happy to help people with that as well. And you know, Amy, as you mentioned, the whole virtual, you know, this is how interviewing is happening right now.
Right.
And I think we're going to see an uptrend in that. Online pre-screening tests, you know, there are companies that require those ahead of time before they even will screen. So, you know, just practicing that. You know, you're already FaceTiming and Skyping and that. So, you know, continuing to do that, but being thoughtful about it and saying, you know, how can I practice for an interview, you know, on this platform?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk a little bit about accomplishments. You know, this is, that's the next slide. Thank you. I think we're trained to think about our work in terms of tasks, and we want to turn task thinking into outcome thinking. What are some of the results that you've produced? So when you have that document, that Word document that I'm encouraging you to create, you want to put you know, accomplishments on there. And I've laid it out here for you. What are some of the challenges you've encountered or problems that you've solved, either in work or volunteer work? You know, think about it in terms of, this is the thing that happened, not this is the thing that I did. And the skills that you used. And, you know, so what do I mean by that? You know, did you take initiative? Did you work as part of a team? Did you analyze something? You know, were you a leader? Those are the kinds of skills. And what was the favorable result? And if you could use metrics, that's helpful too. You know, if you can let someone know what the scope of what you did is, it helps the reader. So, you know, using how many, how much, how often, that's helpful in creating accomplishments. All right, professional communication. Let's talk about that. This is another place where I often cringe. You know, is your verbal communication poised? Do you show confidence? How do you do that? How do you get that? Practice. That's the only way. You know, you have to practice. You have to know what you want to say. You have to be thoughtful. Don't just, you know, jabber on about nothing. You want to, you know, have a plan and a strategy. Nonverbal communication is actually the biggest a part of that pie, you know. So if you had a pie and it was verbal, nonverbal, and written, nonverbal would be over 60% of that pie. So what are you wearing? How do you sit? You know, are you making eye contact? All that is important. And whether that is virtual or not, it doesn't matter. You want to you want to be sure that you're practicing those things. And, you know, your written communication, for goodness sake, you know, abbreviations, because not everybody will know what that is, and it doesn't look that professional. I edited a link here of a site that I think is really good because it covers a little bit of all of these things with some helpful hints that I don't have the time to give tonight, but I think it's you know, it's a good resource. So, you know, one that we can share. All right, and finally, I want to talk about networking. What is that? Networking is something that people don't understand and don't like. And I think they don't like it because they don't understand it. But it's really something that we do quite naturally. You know, building mutually beneficial relationships. Who stays in a relationship that's not mutually beneficial? You know, you don't. It's a good way to find a mentor, and it's a good way to, you know, explore new ideas. So, you know, what are you supposed to do in a networking conversation? You know, you want to ask questions, you want to share ideas, you want to ask for referrals, and you want to offer help. I have a little, you know, way to remember that I hope can be helpful to you. In a networking conversation, you want to ask for AIR, A-I-R. The A is advice. How should I go about learning about whatever, about X? You want to ask for information, that's the I. What can you tell me about thus and such company or this kind of role? And you want to ask for referrals, that's the R. Do you have any contacts that might be helpful to me that you can introduce me to? So it's really kind of simple. And you start with people that you're comfortable with. You know, you're already doing networking, you just don't have a strategy behind it. So start with the people that you're comfortable with. You know, you may ask friends or peers, you know, do you know anybody that has, you know, is in this career or has this type of role or works in this type of company? And they might introduce you. Your teachers, your coaches, any, you know, part-time jobs that you may have. Your parents' networks are very valuable. You know, they've been in the workplace. They know a lot of people. And certainly, you know, as you mentioned, Amy, the St. Joe's alumni network is phenomenal. And I've never known anyone that I reached out to tell me no, they didn't have time. So you definitely want to, you know, to tap into that network. This is the hard part. It's a life skill, and it's something that definitely takes practice.
Definitely.
All right, and finally, what I wish I knew.
Oops. I don't know where that
There
slide is.
are
Yeah.
many paths. Yes.
Don't know where that
Did you
slide
lose
is.
me?
Yes, I lost that slide. So I'll just,
Oh,
yeah,
it's just
continue.
at the end.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for joining me. And
Yeah.
and what I wish I knew. You know, talents can be used in many ways. You know, and there are many paths. And you know, you had mentioned that. It's okay not to know stuff right now and forever. Research, ask. Don't be a job seeker, be a company seeker. You know, what interests you about the company's mission? I wish I knew that along the way. I was lucky, I tripped over it, but I work with a lot of people who have not been that lucky. You know, talents can be used in a lot of different ways. You know, I had that interest in design early on. It didn't go away. It didn't mean that that was a lost career. You know, my kids had the best Halloween costumes in the country. You know, I did, you know, pageants. I now have, I talked about multiple revenue streams. I now have a quilting business where I make t-shirt quilts. That was launched at St. Joe's. No, I've been making about 10 masks a day, for people who don't have any other way to get them. So, you can use your talents in ways that can benefit other people. Even if it's not a career, it could be your life's mission. And what I wish I knew early on was that I needed a mentor. It's really helpful to have someone who has knowledge and wisdom and encouragement and may see things in you that you don't see in yourself. So, look for those mentors. You don't have to knock on people's doors and say, hey, would you be my mentor? But be thinking about relationships that you already have that you might want to develop into a mentoring relationship. All 5 of my kids have mentors, and it really is very, makes me so proud to see that they have come from my network, from my friends and my peers, that they have, except for one. One got one on his own, and it was his friend's mom. So, I love that. And St. Joe's is filled with people who are willing to be mentors. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, definitely. I do have another quick question before we end, Mrs. Prutting. What should students do right now? We're all stuck at home, seniors that are out there tonight, they're not going to be able to do their futures experience in person at companies that they were looking forward to. So what should they do while we're kind of at home and having this free time, if you will, to do some, look at those websites like you said, but is there anything else advice-wise that you would advise them to get started on today to start prepping for their interests?
You know what? I think there are, my top 3 things would be, one is, get one of those books. I said, do what you are is my favorite. Order that book. There's time to go through that right now. That gives you kind of the focus on me. What am I kind of about? It's introspective. And that might help you you open up your Word document and get your accomplishments going. The second thing I would do is I would explore the ONET online website, because I think that gives you real and it's, across geography and it's across industries. I find that really helpful. And then I would start thinking about, building a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great time to do it. And I can't stress it enough. I think in lieu of being able to be on site at these great companies and experiences in person, we can start building that. So when we all have a chance to do that, which will happen, you'll be ready to go, I think, All right. So I think that's it for tonight. Mrs. Prutting, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
You're very welcome.
And I see a hand being raised here. She's clapping her hand. See, I'm still learning how to use Zoom. So we're all learning together. But thank you for the hand clap. And Mrs. Prutting, really, thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge. And I know the students are going to get a lot out of this. And thank you for kicking off this series. We're really excited about it. And students out there, tune into next week. We're going to send some more information about next week's speaker. And we're going to start digging into career fields and career exploration. So what Mrs. Prutting shared tonight will be a great start as you start learning about different careers. So thank you all. Have a great night. And thanks again.